everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Hey, Mama, if you've been holding it together on the outside, but feeling spiritually drained on the inside, I want to invite you to something special. The Ministry of Mom Experience is happening May 2nd in Washington, D.C. It will be a faith-centered day to help you reset, breathe, and walk away with practical tools to parent with confidence and peace. You don't need more pressure. You need an anchor and a plan. Register now at ministryofmom.com. That's ministryofmom.com. If you've ever felt unequipped to help your child through fear, anxiety, or life's unexpected curveballs, this episode is for you. Today, I'm joined by Samira Jones, founder of Smarter Resilience and the nonprofit Survivors Advocates Voices Emerging, or SAVE, whose mission is to empower survivors of trauma and equip families with the tools to thrive through hard seasons. Samira blends personal experience with practical trauma-informed strategies to show us how emotional safety, mindset, and intentional habits can build resilience in both parents and children. In our conversation, she shares powerful, SMART framework information, and it helps us to recognize signs of emotional overwhelm, and it will also offer simple habits to shift from reactivity to responsive, meaningful connection. Now, perhaps you're healing from your own past. Maybe you're helping a child navigate theirs. If this is where you are right now, Samira brings hope and wisdom that will meet you right there. Welcome, Samira.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I've been wanting to have this conversation because resilience is an important area that I talk about with parents to help children to just learn how to rise above challenges that they have. So let's start here. What inspired you to develop the SMART framework, and how has it changed the way you show up as a parent and an advocate? And I know that you have, older children, but how has this framework helped you on your journey?
Well, I've always had thank you for that question. I've always had the SMART framework inside of me. I just never articulated it as the SMART framework, the acronym. SMART is self-awareness, mindset, mastery, action with intention, reinforcing those actions, and then that brings on transformational power. I know we've heard of the SMART of, SMART goals. Right. So this is a different SMART. And the book came about because I actually did not implement my SMART framework. And I came up with the actual SMART framework after my mother's funeral. In 2025, my mother had passed away, and it triggered trauma from my past as being a survivor of child sex abuse and at the hands of my stepfather. And so when I was at my mother's funeral, I kind of spiraled. I hadn't been around him in a setting like that, in a family setting, in over 30 years. And so it just triggered something in me. Because one, I was just really emotional about my mother's passing. We had some unresolved things ourselves. And then also just being there in his presence, it just really bothered me. And so afterwards, I said, you know what? I know better than this. I've come back from situations in the past, even with this, I've been able to overcome this over the decades of my life. And I'm going to show others how to do it too, and show them that it's okay to fall back a little bit, but you have to know how to get back up and move forward. And so my thing is, we don't bounce back, we bounce forward. And that's where the SMART framework came from.
I like that. And so I'm curious if you don't mind my asking. You said it was 30 years since you had been around most of those family members, or you just kind of mean your stepfather?
A little of both.
Oh,
So,
okay.
my mother's side of the family was there. Some people that I haven't seen ever, or
Oh,
it's
okay.
been about that long, and some people more recently.
Mm,
His side of the family, the same, which is
mm-hmm,
also my side of the family as well, because I am adopted. He's been my stepfather since I was two. So
mm,
technically, he's been the only father in my life that I've known up
okay.
to the point before I was abandoned.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, yeah, no, the reason I was curious about that is because I just wonder, are they aware that you've come out with your book? Because you said that this in 2025. So I'm just wondering if there's some that are close to you that are aware that you've come out with your book and just your nonprofit and all of that, and whether they're supporting you in that or what the response has been to that.
Yes, absolutely. The response has been quite interesting. I did not expect the response that I received because there was a little bit of exposure at her
Sure.
service.
Right.
My brother had gotten up when during the reflection time, and he shared, his experience as a son,
Mm-hmm.
as a brother, and um, all of the vacations and things that he was going to miss, and being on the boardwalk and riding the bicycles, going to the beach and all of that. And I love that for them. I love that for my siblings.
Right.
However, that wasn't my story, and my
Sure.
story was different. And I had to sit in my truth. It wasn't necessarily to expose him, but
Mm-hmm.
me sitting in my truth did expose him, because I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get up there and give that same story, because that
Right.
wasn't my story. So when I
Mm-hmm.
got up, one, I apologized for my spiraling there at the service, and then
Sure.
I went on to say, I'm about to share my reflection, and it's going to be a little difficult for some of you all to sit with, because I knew it was some of their first time even hearing about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I went on to talk about what had happened. I
Mm-hmm.
said, my mother and I, unfortunately, we did not have the relationship that you all just heard from my brother. And I did bring it back full circle, but I did
Right.
say, because at the hands of my stepfather, who was here today, and I was looking at him straight in his face when I said it, he was maybe about 3 feet, if that, in front of me in the first pew.
Mm-hmm.
And I was standing at the podium. I said, the multiple instances of sex abuse in the home at the hands of
Right.
my stepfather, who's here today. And in that
Wow.
moment, it was, hmm, it was like a relief,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the man that once told me when I was 12 years old, when I came out the bathroom after he had me perform some very heinous
Mm-hmm.
acts, if you ever tell anyone, I will kill you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
I.
that day I told everyone.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah, that
right.
day.
You
Yeah.
sure did. You
Yeah,
did.
that day I told everyone, but it wasn't about him. So I did bring it back full circle. And I said, but what I do appreciate is, even though I didn't have my mother as a mom when I was a child, I
Mm-hmm.
experienced her as a mother in my adulthood through my
Mm-hmm.
children. She
Mm-hmm.
supported them going to their events, their
Mm-hmm.
sports events, going, to my daughter's basketball tournament in North Carolina, going to my son's track meets, his football games. And that's how I experienced her as a mom in adulthood. And then I turned to her casket, which was right behind me on my right, and I thanked her. I thanked her for those moments that we were able to have.
Well, I have to say, if I could just imagine if I were in the audience, uh, I would see a lot of people that, while that some of that may have been new information for them, I think you really gave someone courage and encouragement in their own journey. And plus, everybody can look and see how where you are today
Mhm.
and the strength and the courage and the resilience.
Mm.
that you have that brought you there. I have no doubt that there were people that were inspired there, whether they know you well or whether they actually are your cousins and
Mhm.
friends who do know you well. I have no doubt that you inspired people with what you said, and it doesn't
Oh
sound like
yeah.
it was vindictive. It was just being truthful, and I appreciate you sharing it in this space too. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Carol. And for me, even though I didn't need that, what's the word I'm looking for? Reassurance,
Right.
because I stand very bold in my testimony. It was comforting when
Mm-hmm.
family came up to me at the repast because I wasn't even going to go. But since I had family that came in from out of town that I haven't seen in several years, I said, I'm going to go ahead and go. I just really didn't want to be in the same space with them after that.
Right.
Um, but I'm glad that I went because family on both sides just came up to me and embraced me and was like, wow, that was courageous. And a lot of them were like really apologetic, even though it had nothing to do with them because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. But those
Mm-hmm.
who did know, who were also in the same space, um,
Mm.
they know who they were too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you again for sharing it here, even. And
Yeah.
so it brings me to a question because as parents, we want our children to feel emotionally safe, not just physically safe in our space. And so, having experienced what you have, and also when you think about what you try to provide for your own children, what do you think are the key ingredients for building that kind of trust at home?
We're still doing it,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been the best in that area. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
have an example. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I've always tried to be and do the best that I could as far as communication. But
Mm-hmm.
as I am still maturing in that area, it's getting a lot better. I'm learning to listen more to my
Mm-hmm.
children. I know they
Mm-hmm.
would say, that they don't feel that I'm fully listening or they didn't really quite feel seen or heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever want them to feel that way. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes as parents, we feel that we're giving our children our best, but that's our assumption. You should
Right.
have that conversation with them and ask, what do you need? Where do you not feel seen? Where do you feel unheard? And not just take it upon ourselves to think that we're giving our all and that is enough. Just like in a marriage, the same thing happens in marriage is on both sides. You think you're giving your best and maybe you are, but that's not what they need.
Right, right. I mean, so much there that you said. I'll start with the last point, and that's like maybe you are doing your best, but it's not quite what they need. And so that's where that communication comes in, and just being courageous and maybe courageous and humble at the same time
Yeah.
to ask that question, ask them,
Yeah.
check in with them to see how they're doing and see if there's something you could be doing differently for them. And then the other point you made is, especially with our children, very often we just think that we know what's best for them, we know what they're thinking. They just need to live, go to school, live, be good, and all that, and we'll take care of everything else, and that they don't have
Mhm.
these feelings. And so I have young adults, 26-year-old young men. And yes, we definitely have some interesting conversations where they talk about, remember that time when I had to do this, or we had this encounter. Uh, this is how I was feeling. So it can be eye opening. And thankfully, it's eye opening on both sides. There have been some times where I didn't think they were paying attention to what I was trying to teach them or what
Yeah.
my husband was trying to teach them, and they were paying attention and they're incorporating certain practices into their life. So I guess the important thing for us to remember is to check in with our children and communicate with them and see where they are and not assume that we always know what's best for them.
I love that you said that, Carol. I recently I attended a conference, which
Mm-hmm.
was really a speaker conference, a business conference.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the speakers, his presentation, he presented this primal question deck, and it was so good. Oh my gosh, so good. It talked about the roots and the branches of addressing the thing that's underneath the thing that operates everything. And I
Oh,
loved that
wow.
so much. I
Wow.
loved it
Okay.
so much that when I
Uh-huh.
came home from Atlanta, I asked my children, hey, do you want to go out for dinner? I'm really excited about something that I want to share with you all because I learned something about me that I think
Hmm.
I answered some questions that are going to help me help all of us,
Right.
And so some of the questions, there were like seven primal questions that we all have and in some way, shape, or form we're asking them in our minds through our actions, and they're just always there. Am I loved? Do I have purpose? Am I enough? Am I safe? It was just like seven questions, and so I went down each of
Mm-hmm.
the questions while we were at dinner at this restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and gave them the floor. And I said, okay, question number one. And because I took pictures of the slides while I was at the event. And so I said,
Right.
question number one, am I safe? And then I
Mm-hmm.
asked each of them, how do you feel about this question? And then they would talk about that regarding their friends or other family members, things that are personal. And then I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, what about me? Do I make you feel safe, or do I make you feel loved, or where do you not feel this, or where do you not? And it was so good. It was so good. And
I
to your
bet.
point, we just have to have humility as
Yes.
parents. We want to feel that we're our children's heroes and we're doing everything in the best, but you may be in a sense, but that
Mm-hmm.
just may not be enough. That may not be exactly what they need. They may need a little more from you. And
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed doing that exercise with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what can we do like for families that have experienced trauma together, or maybe one of the family members, or a major life change? What are a few things parents can do to support the healing
Mm,
along the way?
mm. So I've been through this with both of my children. They both
Okay.
have their own stories.
Okay.
Just be available. Don't
Mm-hmm.
pressure them. Let
Mm-hmm.
them go through their own journey and open up when it's best for them. And being a survivor myself, I get it. So I understand wanting that space. For years, I did not want to talk about it. I was in survival mode. I was just, trying to make it from day to day in my mind, keep my mind right. And,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, when they are open to having that conversation, let them lead and be more of a listener, be an
Mm-hmm.
active listener. Um, and don't try to interject too much of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be more of a listener and let I say let the spirit lead your heart, and
Mm-hmm.
um, you'll get a lot from that. And sometimes that's maybe all they need is someone to listen. We give so
Mm-hmm.
much. We're when we're in parent mode, we want to give advice. We want to give advice, give advice, give advice, give
We want to
advice.
solve the problem. Yes.
Everything, yes, yes. And not everything calls for that. Not
Right.
everything calls for that. Sometimes it's just sitting here like this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
wow. And maybe even asking questions like, well, instead of telling them what to do, how did that make you feel?
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anything I can do to support you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
type of questions.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely right. It helps when we are tentative as opposed to definitive about
Mhm.
what they need to do and what we want to tell them. And sometimes when we, like you said, sit and ask those questions, we find that it gives them an opportunity to turn it over in their head. And like some of the questions that we ask, because we're framing it in a question, that gives them the opportunity and the right to say, uh, well, no, it's not that, it's this. Or, and again, it's just helping them to work it out in their mind, what it really is. And then they can kind of get to that point where, after a few exchanges like that with you in conversation, then they might come to something. Now I do know how you could help me.
Hmm.
And then it's
Hmm.
just what they need instead of what you started out thinking.
Want to give your skin that lifted, luminous look? Like you just came back from summer vacation? Listen, I know the leaves are turning, but Dermalogica's Phyto Nature Firming Serum does exactly that. With dual phase technology powered by botanicals like camu, Moroccan rock rose, and hyaluronic acid, it helps firm, hydrate, and turn back the clock on tired skin. It's clinically proven to double your skin's luminosity after just one use, and it smooths out lines in just 4 weeks. I use mine, and it's a total game changer for me. So click the link in the notes and grab this deal at Ulta. And trust me, your skin will thank you.
That you wanted to do for them.
I love that. And what it's also doing, Carol, is addressing one of those primal questions that we have. Am I safe?
Mm-hmm.
Because even in conversation, you want to feel safe. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes safety is just having the floor, being
Yes.
able to just speak freely, uh,
Mm-hmm.
not be cut off. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at that,
I
because, you sometimes
know.
you just want to say something so bad and you're like, whether it's out of shock or you immediately want to solve something or you want to address something, it just doesn't sound right. Or, we want to just jump in there. And we have to have that self control. And it's not
Mhm.
always easy. It's not always easy. So it's an exercise for us as parents as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so now, what would you say are some early warning signs that you've seen, or maybe in people that you've worked with who've talked about their children? Would you say where a child is overwhelmed and anxious or shutting down emotionally?
Mm. Withdrawal.
Mm,
That can look like maybe staying in the room for long periods of time, waking up late, um, change in eating habits, whether it's overeating, undereating, what you eat. If you know that, your child relatively pretty much eats a well balanced diet, but now
mm,
they're more so just going to more of the processed foods, not cooking as much if they usually cook, that may
mm-hmm.
be a sign of stress. Um, what else? Those are the major ones. A lot of, well, we already know this generation do a lot of screen time anyway,
Yes.
but that can be a distraction too. That
Mm-hmm.
one's a little more hard to pinpoint because now that is the norm.
Right.
Just the doom scrolling, as they call it. I just learned that word last year, doom scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something that's the norm. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. And so, what would you say to a mom who might be listening or watching that kind of feels like their child's behavior triggers their trauma or triggers reactions that are rooted in their trauma?
That's where the S in the SMART framework comes in, self-awareness.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where you have to realize, okay, this isn't them, this is all me. And that
Mm-hmm.
takes self-awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have to sit in it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to, I talk about name it, feel
Mm-hmm.
it, and
Mm-hmm.
reframe it.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times the way that we project ourselves, or we react, I don't necessarily say respond to the point that you're making, we're in reactive mode. It isn't about them, it's all about us. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes a heightened self awareness of self to
Mm-hmm.
realize that. And once you do, like I said, you have to sit in it. And it's uncomfortable. It can be
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable. It's always uncomfortable to realize something is you. You have to sometimes realize that you may be the problem.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you have to sit in it and then figure out, okay, how do I fix this? How
Mm-hmm.
do I, and whether that is, a spiritual thing for you,
Mm-hmm.
everyone is different, but you can't keep going and running and going around the hamster wheel because then your trauma bleeds on to everyone else. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to address it.
Right, right. And so while we're there, the first letter of the SMART framework, can you talk briefly about the framework?
Sure. So, well, I just explained the S,
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that, okay, maybe it's me. What
Mm-hmm.
can I do to change this? How can I pivot? Um, M is mindset mastery, being able to understand exactly what's going on with yourself. Once you do, it's that thing that it takes a lot of learning and teaching, well, learning and pivoting from old behaviors. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's where it comes in with the action. Now you start taking these actionable steps to reframe and move forward, not backwards. And
Mm-hmm.
once you do that over and over again, which takes you through each of those steps each time, and you have to catch yourself at moments. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a cool off and say, okay, that's an action. So you take these actions that work for you. Everyone is different. And when you
Right.
reinforce those actions over and over and over again, it becomes transformation. It's almost like when you say, okay, this is my goal. They say it take, 120 days for you to actually
Mm-hmm.
transform, and now you're this thing. It's the same thing. When you reinforce those actions over and over and over again, that's
Mm-hmm.
transformational power and it becomes who you are. And it's easier now to have self awareness
Mm-hmm.
and implement mindset mastery, take those actions with intention. You're already reinforcing them, and that's just who you are. And it just makes for such a better life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think it's something, it's a wonderful framework to start with children, really.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait until they're adults to start recognizing that their behavior has implications not only for themselves but for others, and also just that to actually become self-aware of their ability to bounce back or bounce forward, you say,
Bounce forward.
about
Yeah.
to bounce forward, in that, so that
Mhm.
they can, like, and children need practice with that, really. I mean,
They do.
resilience is a muscle. It really is a muscle that you've
It
got to
is.
keep using, and you can teach them to develop it in small ways. I mean, you don't intentionally set them up into bad situations and watch them get out of it, or move past it. But they're just, everybody has little setbacks during the day that don't quite go our way. Obviously, we're older, have more experience. It doesn't mean as much to us, but for our children, in
Mhm.
their day, I mean, think about friendships at school, how someone treats them or whatever, how they do on a test if they don't get on the team they want to, sports team, academic, some kind of science team or project. They have disappointments and things that they have to move past.
Mhm.
And really having this opportunity to speak with them, and as we talked about earlier, really tapping into how they're feeling, teaching them how to tap into it, teaching them not to just blow by things, but just to recognize it, take what they can from it, and then move forward with the taking the lesson with them. Those kinds of things, that's really a gift that parents can give to their children.
Yeah, and let them know that, resistance is okay. We're always
Mm-hmm.
going to have some form of resistance in life, but I also want to challenge you, Carol, to and others to really not only look at resilience as a struggle, like going through a struggle, but
Mm-hmm.
even a different way of life. Resilience can be, I have this thing now, like I want a soft life, and I get to build that. I get to
Right.
build what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be attached to something negative. Often it is, but we
Mm-hmm.
get to decide that.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely like that perspective as well. Um, what could what could we talk about with parents that feel like I've I've already I've messed up already. I don't even know if I can turn this thing around. What kind of encouragement can you give to those parents?
I'm a believer,
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that we can always turn things around. I'll
Mm-hmm.
use my mother for an example. Mm, you just brought something to mind. She probably never thought that the day would come where I would invite her over for dinner, to have dinner
Mm-hmm.
with the kids and I, during the holidays and things like that. And I would say always be intentional, meaning leaving that door open, leaving that space open. Don't automatically feel that it's closed. Just
Mm-hmm.
give your child the autonomy to make that decision for themselves, depending on what that circumstance is. For
Mm-hmm.
years, I did not like to be around my mother, for
Okay.
obvious reasons, after the abandonment and giving me away, and she just wasn't there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had harbored some feelings. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I would definitely say always be open to reconciliation. Well, of course, the parent wants you, in this instance that you're asking, the parent wants reconciliation. Let the child have the space for that, because depending on what the circumstance is, it may be difficult for them. Maybe they have gone through some other things that, are also a part of their belief system and why they
Mm-hmm.
make the choices and the decisions that they're making. But then, you know, again, once you have that door open and they just want to maybe start off small, have a little small conversation. Maybe it's a text. I remember my mother text me. Oh no, I text her.
Mm-hmm.
I said, she hugged me one day when she left my place.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I was surprised. I said, that was a surprise. I sent her a text. And then she
Mm-hmm.
said, we should hug more often.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the most soft text that we've ever had, ever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think my mother's ever said, I love you. And this was
Mm-hmm.
just like a couple of years ago when she sent that. And
Mm-hmm.
that was me seeing the leaf turning, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
there's always possibility for that leaf to turn. Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Just give space and always be available and open.
I like that. Yes, it's never too late. Now,
Mhm.
as we come to the close, I would like to ask you, what are you most proud about in terms of you being a mom to your children and demonstrating resilience and also maybe even all of the elements of the SMART framework?
One, I'm very proud of my children. They've gone through quite a bit, as seeing me be a parent that went through a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
them just being resilient on their own, going
Mm-hmm.
through just different transitions. I call them acts of life,
Mm-hmm.
and going through their own acts of life and doing the best that they can with that, even supporting me with
Mm-hmm.
everything that I'm doing, just saying, hey, mom, do you need this or do you need that? Or even throughout the day when I'm in my office, my son, he'll come in and, bring me something, or my daughter, they'll bring me breakfast, or, just really helpful in this season. And we encourage one another. We encourage one another. I remember we had a talk maybe about a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they said this is one of the best. My daughter, she said this is one of the best conversations that we've ever had.
Hmm.
So just us growing together. Now I feel like we're friends.
Right.
Because,
Right.
and you could probably relate to that. Your sons are 26, and
Mm-hmm.
you're still parenting. You're just
Yes.
parenting differently.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't the young ones that you're picking up from school anymore, and everything is
Mm-hmm.
rush, rush, rush. And, you got to get homework done and get
Mm-hmm.
school lunches packed and all of that, get clothes washed for school. Now they're at an age where they're self-sufficient. They
Mm-hmm.
have their own thoughts and things about life that you can have conversations about. My son, he loves politics, so he'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter, she's into doing like her Christian music now, and
Okay.
they
Mm-hmm.
each have their own lane, and it's a beautiful experience to be able to see. And I'm doing my own thing now.
Right.
You're a parent for so, I mean, well, you're always going to be a parent, but you know what I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
active parent that's running to all the school events and
Mm-hmm.
doing all the things that parents do when your children are young, but you kind
Right.
of get some of yourself back when they get to a
Yes.
certain age. So I'm even in an exploratory element within myself right now, and I love it. I love
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it comes to the SMART framework, again, that self-awareness, like, wow, I have a little more freedom now. They have a little more freedom. My daughter has
True.
a car now, and so she goes and drives to wherever she wants to. I don't have to go pick her up and take her back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all
Mm-hmm.
just growing together
Mm-hmm.
and doing our thing. Still a family, but we now each have our own lives, and I love it.
That's beautiful. Now, tell us where we can find you and follow your work, follow what you're doing.
I am on Facebook, Samira Jones, and also on Instagram, Samira L. Jones. And I also have a podcast that I recently launched, which is The Smart of Resilience on YouTube. And also, the book Smarter Resilience is on Amazon
Awesome. And I
and
can,
Survivors Magazine as well. Well, no, Survivors Magazine isn't on Amazon. Survivors Magazine is on survivorsmag.com, which is a new magazine that we launched in January of this year to amplify survivors' voices.
and I can highly recommend both. You all head on over to Amazon, also head over to survivorsmag.com. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. And Samira reminded us today that resilience isn't something we're born with, it's something we build together, one moment and one intention at a time. So, whether you're just beginning this journey or in the deep work of healing and growth, remember this: you are not alone, and there's still time to create emotional safety and connection in your home. Thank you so much for listening. And if this episode helped you even one little bit, please like and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It literally helps other moms find us. And believe me, it happens. I've been speaking at events and people have walked up to me and told me that they've found my podcast through Apple Podcasts, like it suggested it to them. So listen, your comments, your reviews, they matter. Not only do they give me feedback so that I can give you more of what you're looking for, but it helps those in your community, other moms just like you. So please, please do leave those reviews. And I can't wait to talk to you again next time. And remember, it's never too late to be the parent you want to be. Talk to you next time.
We bring you this episode for the purpose of information and entertainment only. It is not the intent or purpose of the Parenting 411 podcast or Carol Maletta to provide an exhaustive reference or guide on all aspects of parenting, childcare, and family life. You are strongly encouraged to read all available information, consult medical or other appropriate professionals, and pursue all reasonable means to learn as much as possible about parenting to complement what you gain here, and then tailor the information to meet your individual needs. Yes, parenting is a serious matter, though it is not an exact science. The context and insights offered in this and every episode represent an account of knowledge and personal experiences of the host and any featured guests for the viewers and listeners' information and consideration. The host and guests do not guarantee to our viewers or listeners any specific parenting outcomes from this episode or taking actions described here.